Okay, so you are listening to the Pranzata podcast. I think this is episode 23, but if I'm wrong, I'll correct it in the video description. But today I'm really excited. I have a guest after not having a guest for about 3 or 4 weeks. I have my friend AJ Sherman here today.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. And if I could describe him, you might do better than I could, so just describe yourself.
Sure, yeah. I'm a guitar comic, content monster, kind of person. Just, happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited because he has merged the two worlds that I just do completely separately. He is a comedian and songwriter in one package, which I have a lot of questions for him because I feel like I should do that so that my life is less complicated. But before we get into it, don't forget to hit subscribe, don't forget to hit like, and don't forget to comment on anything we do as we go along in the conversation. This is the Pranzata podcast. We do a solo podcast and sometimes interviews with local musicians, comics, artists of all kind in the New Jersey, New York, Philly area. But anyways, if you're into that, hit subscribe, and here we go. So, hello, here we are.
Yeah.
Today I got us some Michelob Ultra because I was just telling him how Michelob Ultra Gold. I'm a big fan because I don't get a hangover from these personally, so I'm a huge fan.
I find that to be great news because I'm getting more and more hangovers the older and older I get. It's rough. Cheers. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And we're the same age too. We just discovered the other day, right?
Yes.
You're 33?
I'm 32. Yes.
Oh, so you're like...
we're in there. We're right in there, right? When did you graduate?
I don't remember. That's how you know you're getting older because you don't remember those things anymore. 2006?
Okay, yes. I'm 2007. But we're right in there.
Basically
we would have been
the
in
same
school
age.
at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not from New Jersey, and learning about Somerville has been awesome. There's so much great culture and stuff here, and I don't know. Moving from Jersey City, I was definitely expecting a change, but this cafes, cool restaurants, cool places to be. Really like it here.
So it's so funny that you're moving. We were talking about this before at the gig we had a couple weeks ago. You moved from Jersey City to here, but I'm trying to move from here to Jersey City or one of the surrounding areas. So we're kind of life swapping right now.
Yeah, I think, listen, Jersey City is awesome. I think you would love it there. The whole vibe is really, really fun. It was great to live there for a couple of years. I lived in Queens beforehand for 2 or 3 years, but living in Jersey City for 5 was really just a dream. Very, very fun. Where would you want to live? Have you looked at places yet?
Well, okay, so my listeners know I was talking about the past few episodes that I wanted to move to New York City to be closer to more comedy events.
Yeah.
But now I'm hearing about this Delta strain. I mean, I've heard about it already, but I kind of thought it was something that was okay, the vaccines and everything, we're going to be fine. It'll blow over. But now it's I don't know if you've heard anything about this, but it's kind of looking all right, well, this might be another pandemic or a continuation of the same pandemic and we might get more closures.
Yes.
So now I'm all right, maybe I should hold off on that decision until I see what blows over. What do you know about it? Or have you heard
about the Delta?
Yeah.
Had a recent scare with one, which was spooky. But we've been testing and getting tested. I took an at-home test before I came here. Yeah. That's something I think everybody should be acquiring, at-home testing kits, so that you can, if you are a person like us who goes out and perform, you can do the responsible thing, I think, and, prepare yourself for going out. I think that's inherently one of the hard parts about, this whole situation is that it's incumbent upon yourself to take care of other people. And I think people have a hard time seeing past how they deal with their own body and the autonomy and the liberties they want to hold with that, which we're not going to disrespect. Yeah. But at the same time, I think I think it's on behalf of the audience, I want them to be there and enjoy it and have fun and forget about this for a little bit and kind of have that little bit of an escape. And for me, that meant getting vaccinated. I got vaccinated super early on, which was awesome.
I remember that. You were very proactive about it because I was doing my podcast and I was kind of in the beginning, I wasn't as proactive because I was I didn't realize the severity of it at that time.
No, sure.
And I think a lot of people are catching up now. Like a lot of people are like, all right, I'm going to get this vaccine, you know?
Yeah, I think, I looked at it as kind of, being a space monkey. I was kind of okay with it. My wife wasn't pregnant at the time. She is pregnant now. So it was a little bit of a different world. So I was like kind of thinking I wanted to get back out. I wanted to, my main job that I do, which is not musical comedy, is I sell medical equipment for a company overseas. And I used to travel about 1 to 2 weeks a month. And I really was on the road and I loved it. And I kind of would like to get hopefully one day back to something sort of close to that. But seeing and agreeing with you that this Delta thing is nothing to sneeze at. I don't know what's going on. There is a trade show. I'm actually not attending because I have other commitments, but there was a trade show I was supposed to be attending, and I'm very curious to see from my coworkers what that's like, what that looks like.
Yeah.
I think it's going to change us a lot. I agree with you. I don't think we're out of it. And, I also think it's about being responsible on our end. Again, like I said, personal responsibility, going out and, I remember going out and doing stuff early on, wearing the mask, going inside, wearing masks in between playing, making sure I was I was pretty choosy with the places I attended, to try to make sure that I was being safe. I put that first over comedy, which, I understand if the need to go out all the time, it just was not my situation I could do.
Yeah, I am noticing the pattern repeating from last year, like where I remember at first people were like, "Oh, it's just in China. It's only in China.
No.
It's not going to make we were just like it's not going to make it here." And then slowly certain states were acting first. Like first it was California and then other states started following, and I'm like I heard people talking this year and they're like, oh, the Delta, it's nothing. It's just in India or whatever countries. And I'm like, well, isn't that how it started last year? It started just in Italy and just in China. And then before you know it, it came here. And so it's like, I'm just like, I thought we were finally reaching a point of normalcy again. And I'm like, I guess it's happening again.
Yeah. I don't understand people who at this point have not gotten vaccinated. I understand, you have all your rights and your reasons. I don't understand the act of not doing it, but I think what's cool about what will actually happen is that it will become excruciatingly intolerable for the unvaccinated to do things.
Yeah.
Right? So it will become harder. It will be impossible for you to go see a Broadway show. I'm so sorry for you. Yeah. It will be impossible for you to go see probably sporting events, my music events at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
And then, we'll go on from there. You're going to have to, unfortunately, wear the mask, which you don't want to do on the train. I don't know. We don't have to talk about this. We're going to get flagged for COVID misinformation.
No, it's okay. I don't think my podcast is actually popular enough yet. I feel like we're in the right time to say something because
sure.
I don't think my podcast is actually popular enough yet to be flagged for anything. I only have 200 subscribers. So subscribe if you want us to
get out there and subscribe.
Subscribe so we could get canceled for talking about
Yeah.
Do you think there's going to be, now this is my question, do you think there's going to be closures again, or do you think it's just going to be not closures, but just a new, stricter rules of getting into things?
Well, I think, one of the interesting parts of kind of going through this whole experience was we're never going to go back to the way it was in 2019. It's just not coming back, right? Yeah. There's certain things and behaviors that human beings can just do better than, I remember reading or hearing on a podcast that after the 1918 Spanish flu, people stopped expectorating, which means just spitting freely around the world.
Only podcast of the left? Is that what it's called?
It could have been it. I'm sorry. I don't remember the exact facts on that one, but that was one of the things people just stopped doing, and I think going forward, we're going to do similar things like that. I think, look at the way that certain countries in, the Far East and Asia have dealt with things like this in the past. They have more pandemics than we do, and they're more accustomed to wearing masks. And I think that we're going to be more accustomed to that. I think we'll be dealing with different variants for a while. I think it's a new normal. I think it's thinking about life differently, evaluating the risk, being calculated and decisive. Critical thinking is very important to me, and the stuff I do.
I feel like society, it's okay. I burp all the time on my podcast because I'm always drinking beer, even somehow I burp from water. But I feel like our society is changing so fast and so,
yes.
which it always has. They they said that our society reached a plateau, but I feel like something is, it almost seems like our society is collapsing. Like, it's kind of going haywire. Like it's going fucking crazy.
Yeah. It's weird to be at the culture at this point in time.
Yeah.
You know, it's a unique place to be. And I think our generation is definitely going through it in a way that no other generation had been before. I think we remember the analog days of when you had a house phone, right? And people called your parents' house, right? Yeah. And I don't have a house phone. Do you have a house phone?
No.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Like, so we kind of live in now this new digital world, and you know that.
How do you do with that? Are you very like? Well, I feel like the answer is I don't want to answer for you, but
no, please. I would love to hear what you think of it.
My guess would be that you're more pro technology because you have a TikTok and everything, so you're more like go with the flow. But I'm curious, as like somebody around my age, were you resistant to technology in the beginning? I was, but I finally like caved in and realized like. It's better to I tried to quote this Bruce Lee quote last time and I totally forgot how it goes, but it's the one where it's like be like water. I don't know, someone comment in the comment section if you know what quote I'm talking about, but it's this really good quote like be like water, like to kind of flow with everything and flow with the like make your form able to adapt to whatever situation you're in. And that's when I realized like, all right, like I'm not going to be so stubborn about technology. I have to survive. I have to go with it.
No, you're right. I like that. That's very similar to one of my favorite quotes, which is Teddy Theodore Roosevelt, which he said, do what you can where you are with what you have.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of ideology is where kind of all the content I want to create comes from. You know, I wanted to do a podcast back in 2015. It got all sorts of crazy and ended up not going down the way I had originally planned it. Yeah. Took about a year off, was just traveling, doing my regular job. And one of the guys I had done like a practice podcast for, my best friend, Frankie, who does the podcast with me currently, Frank Marsilio.
Oh, you guys have a podcast you do together.
It's called the Long Lost Heroes Podcast. We've been doing it since 2017. It's named after our band when we were in high school. Mm-hmm. And pretty much like as a band, we were not definitely these push it really crazy guys in high school. We were really just playing the school gigs and school opportunities, which was really, really fun and, you know, kind of got us in, I would say, a very manageable expectation band. You know what I mean? Where we're like, all right, guys, like we're in high school, like we can get into these things. Like, let's just do that. And we did that, and we did it as best as we possibly could. Yeah. And that was very fun. So, but other times we would go and watch movies and, you know, stay up late and, you know, watch, you know, sci-fi shit. And it was really fun. So we would always stay up and talk about Star Wars or whatever. So it was very natural kind of for my friend who was in DC at the time and me living back east in Jersey City and saying like, all right, let's start kind of a remote podcast. And something I think is very true to all content creators, and maybe you could speak to this, is like you do not have to start with the best everything. I think it's important just to get started, you know, and that I think there's even a commercial on with the Olympics this year where it's like, you don't have to be amazing to start, but you have to start to be amazing.
Yeah.
And I think that's really true.
That's actually come up a lot on my podcast. I brought it up on a solo podcast, like in the beginning when I was like just starting and I didn't feel ready. And I kind of like just opened up about it. And then I had one of my other podcast guest who is a filmmaker, Tracy Anderson. She's awesome. Check her out, by the way. She also mentioned the same thing. Like she just started a YouTube channel, and a lot of the times what holds people back from beginning something is feeling like they don't have it ready and they don't have it put together yet.
Yeah.
But like a lesson I'm learning in life in general is that it's never put together and it's never perfect and it's very unpredictable. So you might as well just start with whatever the fuck you have.
Yeah, and to me that was like, I can play guitar. Yeah. And like and that was very much like you know, I had been going to open mics as a singer-songwriter for years.
Yeah.
I'd actually started going to mics back with one of the first open mics I did, you know, after stopping for such a long time, was in 2014 in Germany, like at this bar that was having an open mic, and some like Australian guy comes up and he's hosting. He's like, anybody want to come up and sing a couple songs you drink for free? And I'm like, hell yeah. And I went up and played, and like that, I hadn't done that in years, you know? So that kind of got me going. And then once I kind of started that a little bit, I think the going to music mics became especially because I wasn't in a band and I haven't played in bands in such a long time, that it almost seemed harder to get into a band for me. And it just felt like, all right, like, what am I gonna do? And I always wanted to try stand up. I loved comedy growing up, and especially in college, driving around listening to like comedy CDs of George Carlin. And we were so lucky when we were kids, we had Comedy Central Presents every Friday night, which was huge for me. You know, I didn't go out to parties. I stayed home and watched those guys. And so I don't know. It was kind of like the perfect synergy. And then, of course, I'm like, if I don't get any laughs, like, I don't have to go again. It's fine, whatever. And like, of course, I went and I got laughs. And I was like, oh shit, this is a new feeling.
You got that beginner's luck that was like just enough to get you hooked.
Oh yeah, and it was also knowing, like, I liked writing songs. I spent a lot of time doing theory stuff. I know that you teach, so I think theory was very helpful to music theory. Was very helpful to understanding different ways to play the guitar.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of and also studying Bob Dylan, but the kind of the two of those things merged together was very important to me, to have something that was, I think, musically interesting and dynamic enough for somebody who's a musician to like it, but that really you're there for the comedy and that connection, because that's the crossover, right?
I was really curious about your like path and how you became a music comic. Like, I was wondering, like, did he like comedy? Like, so what you're saying is you were a musician.
Yes.
You happened to like comedy, so you just decided to merge the worlds.
Yeah.
And it became like your thing. You kind of got hooked to it.
Well, I'll take it to like a deeper level because we're here. Well, I think the thing for a musician, and I think musicians can agree or not, but when we're writing songs, I think it's a lot of the times a good starting place is for us to be connecting with a feeling or with like a specific emotion.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to I think connect somebody to that emotion, because emotions are quite general, but you could, even if you're specific enough and you write creatively, I think you can make somebody cry with a very emotional song. You could make somebody laugh with a very emotional song.
Yeah.
But I think for me, I was missing that connection, because I just was I was watching so much and it just felt like I wasn't getting there with what I was feeling.
Yeah. And
it was about that when you're doing comedy, you're really trying to connect with a specific thought. It's not an emotion. Sometimes it's even, autonomous. You're not even reacting because you're laughing, right? Like, it's an involuntary reaction. So it has to be that fast and that specific, and that connection for me, the connection with the audience is really where it is for me.
Maybe I need to start doing this, because like I'm similar to you, that you and I have a lot in common, because like I've seen your Instagram and you're like a foodie, like,
yes.
I'm a foodie, like we have that in common. We're like foodies, but I love comedy. I'm very passionate about comedy, stand up. I feel like stand up is like I get the people, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I feel like I jive more with comedians, even more so than musicians, but I'm very naturally musical. So it's like this weird world that I feel like at some point I need to find a way to collide as well. And what I have noticed this too, that there is like a piece missing in my music, which I've always struggled with, where I could write songs easily, but I can't always like write musical lyrics like from the heart, but I could write stand up easily. So it kind of makes me like I'm like, I don't get it. Like I can't really write in a poetic way. Like,
sure,
like words,
I understand what you're talking about.
But I do connect with writing in like that more analytical type of way.
Yeah.
Which you said that comedy is, where comedy is very like thought based and not emotion based. It's like musically I'm very emotion based, but not with words. With words I'm very comedy based. So it's like, Jesus Christ, maybe I should just like kind of do what you're doing.
I think you should try it. I think, and also because you play the piano and like it's a really amazing instrument. It's going to be hard to lug to those mics, but I think it's going to be great for you, because it really is. It's really a passion of mine. I think that it's often sneered upon, musical comedy, and I think for a couple of reasons.
What do you think of Bo Burnham?
I love him.
I love him too.
I love him.
He's either loved or hated. And I feel like a lot of people, like, some don't get him. Like, some people think he's too, like, whiny or bitchy. But I think he's a fucking genius.
He's a genius songwriter, right?
Yeah,
he's an incredible songwriter, and he's mastered the craft. I think he's definitely his whole latest special, Inside, is to me, it's like a masterpiece.
I think so too.
Yeah,
and like,
it's amazing to me.
I think some people criticize that he was pandering too much,
which
I get it, I understand. But if you really look at like the root of the like, I don't get people, because I feel like people can't pick and choose. Like, people can't pick a side. Either they're anti cancel culture, like they're like
right.
They're like, fuck cancel culture, but then they'll pick, those same people will like pick apart a person and be like, oh, he was pandering for a minute, he fucking sucks, and like he doesn't look at the whole, they don't look at the whole picture of what he is. And I'm like, yeah, I get some of his stuff maybe he's a little pandery, but if you really look behind that and you see what he is as a whole package, like, he's a fucking genius. Like, you can't deny that.
No, he's even just on the music, like, just musically, he's so interesting and diverse. And I think that, you know, this is going to sound kind of crass and maybe from a different place, but like, to the people who don't like Bo Burnham and the people who are shitting on Inside, I say to you this: if you are not on Instagram or you are not on TikTok and you have not seen 1,000 different people do the Jeff Bezos song, who are you? Because to me, like, that's a moment where a musical comedy piece, thought out, thoughtful, funny, satirical 2-minute song about Jeffrey Bezos transcended. I've seen people dancing to this at weddings. Yeah. Like, that's a different level. Yeah. And I think, you know, I'm not going to say that I thought that there was going to be some kind of, you know, huge celebration of it, but to see it go as big as it's gotten, like, it definitely makes sense to me. Yeah. Because it's so irreverent and so perfect for the social media short form video era. Like, it was made for that in a lot of ways. I'm sure it was, that he had those thoughts that people are going to do TikToks with these songs. They're already doing ones with his other songs. But I just think that that's a level of cultural, like, shaking and wavelength creating that, like, we as comedians and as musicians, like, we long for, to have that kind of a cultural impact, to say, like, look how broadly that idea went, that people aren't even really connecting to it on what the song was generally about, right?
Yeah. I think what I was saying before is, like, people saw his song at, like, the surface level and thought it was like, oh, he's just trying to be like everybody else type of thing. But at the same time, it's like, but we need art that reflects the time. So our time is kind of shitty and weird, and he's trying to find a way to, like, pull the shittiness and weirdness of this time and, like, find the humor in it and connect. Like, and I think he did such a brilliant job at, like, finding all the parts of society today were, like, the things that are ironic, the things that are funny, and also the depressing parts. And he, like, just, it was such a master. It was fucking awesome.
I think it's a great piece. I think it's a great work. Yeah. I'm excited to get it and listen to it. Just on the record, I want to pick it up on a CD, have it in my car, you know.
I really digged a little bit of everything all the time. That was my favorite one, just because it was very, like, Nightmare Before Christmas-y.
Well, that also has a relation to one of his older songs, like one of his first songs, which was like Welcome to YouTube. And is really kind of, he's one of the first, you know, guys who really went from being a YouTube guy to an onstage guy. Yeah. And, you know, I think his process and his approach to it, like, I remember starting to see clips of him in like 2010 maybe, and then seeing a special he had done maybe in like 2012, 2013. Yeah. I don't know. I think he's great. I think what he did is transformative, and, you know, watching him and seeing his whole process to be so stripped down, like we all were. Yeah. That's the total encapsulation of the times.
I also felt like I could relate to some of his, like, visual work a lot with, like, the wires everywhere. Like, because, like, he had some scenes where he was, like, doing his YouTube videos or whatever. He was trying to make his special, and then like he just cut to certain like clips of like what it actually looked like in his room. And that's like so true. It's like on this side you see this beautiful painted wall and like our beautiful shirts, or what, you know, like our beauty. You're raveling at our beauty, but you don't know that in the corner, you don't know that this room is really tiny. You don't know that I don't have air conditioning. I only have, he probably knows by now, but I have air conditioning in just one room that's trying to fill this whole apartment. There's wires all over the fucking place. Like, it's like you don't really know what actually goes on behind the scenes of a production, and especially a low budget production. And I think Bo Burnham illustrated that like beautifully, and I was able to connect with that, like when he was like showing the reality of like, this is what it's like to do what we do. Like,
well, back to the larger argument about, you know, content creators, content creation. Would I assume that title, or is that title even a thing? You know, I think it is, because it's a whole different level of work. It's not, you know, I saw a comic recently, and we were talking, you know, they said, you know, I'm not a marketing guy. I'm not a marketing person. It's not my job. It's not what I want to do. And I, like, on one level, I understand what you're saying, that like fundamentally it's not what we all signed up to do here. Yeah. But I think on the other hand, I think looking at it from the positive, or even from a net neutral, you're in control. You know what I mean? So like, to me, and this is why I go to therapy about control problems, but I go to therapy too. but really the control over what we're putting out, what we're allowing people to see is something you can take pride in. And that if you can kind of get into it even a little bit, I think the internet kind of knows that we all didn't grow up thinking that we wanted to manage the Instagram, manage the podcast, manage the editing of the podcast, managing the video editing of the podcast. Yeah. Like, I don't think we all grew up dreaming we would all do those jobs simultaneously. I think we have the tools, and if you have the patience and I think a little bit of courage, I think you could do it, you know, and I don't say courage lightly, because I think for people, there are people who are afraid to speak in front of a camera, even speak in front of a microphone. Right. Yeah. But I think we have such a tremendous, you have such tremendous ownership. You can be in charge of it. You can drive it in different ways. You can multi-home. Multi-homing is really what we all are doing anyway, even if we're not talking about it. But for me, like, the basic idea, and I even put out like a small song about it, was like, you know, if you want to watch my full songs, you're going to go to YouTube, right? Yeah. Instagram is going to be kind of what it has become, which is our new base level of communication. So it's, you know, I stopped doing the food pictures because I felt like... Did? Yeah. Well, at least the food line, and I'd been doing that for a couple of years, and it was just very indulgent, and it's not good for my body, but whatever.
Oh, you're trying to, it's okay. I get it.
Yeah. Anyway. But the main thing is it's social. So I want doing social stuff. And then TikTok is like the ultimate creator tool for doing whatever. Yeah. And, you know, I'm not going to say like I've figured out how to do it, but I've been playing with it for a couple of months. And because I don't look at it as a social network, I look at it as a content vehicle. Yeah. I think I'm having a much better time. Yeah. I can't imagine being these kids and being so frustrated that because they don't have the time as we do to make these things.
I remember I saw a meme once that was really funny. I think I reposted it. I think it was Austin, Texas comedy. They have like a like a hashtag Austin, Texas comedy. I think I got it from something off of there. And the meme said, and I could relate to this. It said, I didn't want a 9-to-5 job. But now I work 80 hours a week, and I can't, I'm fucking it up, but it was like, I didn't want a normal 9-to-5 job as a marketing person, but now I work 80 hours a week, and I'm a video editor, marketer, comedian. And it's like you didn't want this job, but now you are doing that job and 100 other jobs at the same time.
Yeah. We don't really have a choice. And I do think short form is the future. I think the app controllers have told us that's where the future is going. Yeah. And I've just been trying to play within those new rules that they have so that my stuff can get seen is really, you know, I think Instagram is, you know, they do throttle you if you're posting directly from TikTok. So you have to go through usually a third party app get rid of your watermarks, then repost it up there. But even with that, if they see that the conversion file name is too similar to TikTok or something, then it won't get bumped. They'll look at the font. They're looking what's in your videos. The AI is that smart. It's so different. It's so different from when we were kids, because I think, the MySpace era was like, you had kind of, again, it was a control thing. We could have your own code in it. You could have songs on it. It could be whatever color you wanted it to be. We had a lot of choice. And then we all fell in line with Facebook and kind of got into that period. And, and now kind of to be on this end of it, it's just changed so much that it's not about likes or hashtagging or, getting the correct audience built into your account to see what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's now a computer algorithm that you are trying to theoretically trick, right, into saying this content matches similar content that this creator has also made, which also performed well, and then it will go up. And then what's also cool about TikTok that I like is I've enjoyed going live, and it boosts your views. So I think that's kind of cool. Yeah. It's also nice because I find I would be afraid to go on live on like Instagram. I wouldn't want people I necessarily know, watching me in that space, but I'll do it for strangers. That's a weird concept, I guess, right?
Yeah. Oh, the Instagram live thing? Or?
Well, no, that like I'd rather play for like total strangers on TikTok than like anybody on Instagram live that I kind of know.
That's a really good point. I actually want to bring that up. I find like a lot of people, either friends, family, or like potential dates and stuff like that, they'll be like, oh, I really want to see you do stand-up, and I'm like, no. like a lot of people don't realize, like a lot of friends and stuff, they'll take it as, or family, they'll take it as a personal insult that you don't invite them to a stand-up thing, but like they don't understand that like that is the last person that you want to see talk about like those thoughts. I mean, I guess if you ever became successful enough, they wouldn't have a choice. You would be on Netflix or something, and they would have to see you. But like it's such a weird thing. I can relate to that 100%. It's like I feel more comfortable getting up and expressing those thoughts to a group of complete strangers than I ever would for my like friends and family. And as a matter of fact, a lot of like friends, or like not close friends, but like some mutual acquaintances that I know and stuff like that, are shocked that I even do comedy. They're like, you curse? And I'm like, you don't know me. Like, you don't know me. Like, I feel like I have these like polarizing personalities, and that's why I'm so drawn to comedy, because I feel like it's a safe place. It's a safe place. It's actually a very unsafe place, but I feel like it's a place for me to express that part of me. And I feel like having friends and family there would like somehow take that away from me in some kind of way. I don't know. No,
I feel you. I hear what you're saying. I think where I'm okay, because I guess I played earlier for my friends and family. Like I remember like my grandma coming to see me like when I was in like a metal band. You know what I mean? Like that part has been kind of okay. I think what it is like, and I do feel that like the regular me in real life is very different from the comedy me, the me on stage, the me on social media. And I think if you know me, like we either vibe or we don't. That's kind of just life. But I'm trying to appeal to everybody online. I'm not trying to alienate people. I'm trying to be broad. I'm trying to continue to grow. And so I'm. Like, I like it when friends come and watch me perform, like, on a show. I would never invite friends to a mic. Oh, yeah. Like, that's different. It's different for the crowd, right? It's different for, our friends who are also performing, But for a show, I like it. I'm trying to get more feedback from them because trust
their opinion more,
Yeah, I think it is very fun, and I take a lot of pride and privilege that I've, do my comedy adjacent material, and people allow me to do it, and they like me, and then it's been fun. But I'm I'm like a weird guy, So I don't know. It's I'm very excited that like it's cool to like go out and play still, and I have a couple of shows coming up soon, so. As long as I can keep doing it, I love it. Whoever I can play in front of, whenever.
Dude, recently I had not recently, but like a few months ago, I had a guy that had asked me out on like a I don't know, a date. I guess it was a
Sure.
date. He had asked me out, and then before it, he goes, I would love to see your comedy. Do you have like a clip you can send me? And I was like, I don't know if I want to send this to you. You're going to look at me differently. And he was like, no, I wouldn't. And so and a lot of my comedy is like pretty vulgar, which is like why I don't want to invite my family. Like a lot of the stuff I say is pretty vulgar. And he was like, oh, no, I'm not going to judge you. Don't worry. So I sent him like a short clip of something that like went well on the stage. Like I got a lot of laughs. I'm like, I'll send him this one because it got a lot of laughs. But like the content was very like, it was like a joke about rape or something. Like it was something like that. And then he he texted me in a few days and he was like, hey, so... He's like, I don't think I'm going to be able to make it. So like, I'm like, this is exactly why I don't share this part, because like, just because you joke about vulgar things on stage doesn't mean you're like a vulgar piece of shit in real life. Like, and that's what a lot of people don't get, which is why I don't even like bother sometimes with some people. Like,
no, it's got to be hard. I think, do a lot of people request to see clips of you before they meet you?
Oh my God. Whenever it's like, dating, like in dating situations, it's always like, oh, you do comedy, let me see a clip, or I'd love to see you. And I'm just like, I don't know if like that's like a great first date. Like,
yeah, that would be weird. I never, going back to I'm married, so I don't date for comedy, but I remember when you would try to like play music in front of a girlfriend, and that was always like very nerve-wracking for me, because that's like, it's so loaded, and it's like, it's rough to like, they're like, oh my God, here comes this guy with an acoustic guitar and he's gonna play at me, right? Like, ugh. Like intense. It's intense, so I never really had that experience. And like, just like on an amazing like separate note, like it's very nice to like that. And I'm sure it's probably very difficult for you and for a lot of other comedians and lady comedians too. I'm not dating at all in comedy. It has nothing to do with my world. Yeah. So like, it's nice that it's just like so separate from that. And like anything is just like being friends and like having shared interests, you know what I mean? Yeah. And like, cause I'm sure it must be very hard, and meeting dudes who are probably either comedians or not comedians, and they're asking you for like fucking clips.
Yeah, it's really weird. And here's another one. Like if you're on a date with somebody, they'll go, let me hear a joke. And I'm just like that would be like the equivalent if a girl was on, I mean, you're married, but like just imagine you were single, your younger days, you're on a date and some girl's like, can you sing something right now? Like at the dinner table? And she's like, no, I'm not going to tell you a joke like right now.
No.
And here's another thing that's happened to me. I mentioned this to my other comic podcast guest. This has been rough. So as a female, I'm very turned on with guys with a sense of humor. But since becoming a comic, all I listen to is the funniest guys in the world, like Bill Burr, etc., like on podcasts all day long. Yeah. So now, like, no guys are funny to me anymore.
That's good.
Which is like, and I'm not saying I'm that funny. Don't get the wrong idea. I'm just saying like, I have a long way to go before I'm that funny myself, but I'm just saying now that I like listen to really funny men constantly, like for a hobby, and like I go to like I go to open mics now, like when
your level is high,
my standards are high, and then like sometimes I'll get these guys that are like, oh, you're a comedian, let me tell you a joke. I'm like, you better fucking bring it. Like if you're gonna give a joke to a comic as a pickup line, you better fucking bring it. And like I had one guy go and. Oh my God. He goes, here's one. He's like, this is my favorite one. He's like, what?
You remember it?
I'm trying to remember, but it was so bad that it's not even memorable, but it was like, why did the cookie go to the doctor?
Why did the cookie go to the
doctor? Because he was feeling kind of crummy.
Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Well, this guy is a genius, you know.
Like, what did you think? I was gonna like take my drop my pants right there and be like, "That's it, you got it." Like,
you're a master joke writer, my friend. Please allow me.
Yeah, like that shit, like that. Or I'm just like, you better fucking bring it if you're gonna try to tell me a joke. Like, come on.
Jokes are hard. I struggle with them. I think what's very cool about you, and I admire a lot about you, is you've written real jokes. Like I have a tremendously hard time with that. I feel, I've said this before, but I feel very much like the guitar is like my, and you can mock me all you want, commenters.
Like your security blanket?
It's my Captain America shield.
Oh.
All right. So like, even though like I'm not like a mystical wizard, I'm not the Hulk, I do not have an Iron Man suit, and I'm not an Asgardian guy. Like I have this kick-ass like awesome shield, and it's always going to protect me no matter what. And like that it's up here like defending my honor, and that I'm just trying to make my voice and thoughts kind of go with it in such a way where you're forgetting that I'm even singing, right? Really, you know, like you're just connecting with the thought and the idea that that's why I don't sing super pretty, or I don't try to make, or I've found in my writing, these other people can say differently, the more complicated the music of the joke that I'm making, the harder it is to get that laugh.
I actually thought of this. If I do become a musician, comedian package like you are, I thought my singing voice would have to change a little bit, because my real singing voice in my real songs is like, I like to sing very like soft and jazzy and sultry or bluesy and like that type of thing. But I feel like in comedy,
you have a lot of range. You can sing a lot of different styles.
Yeah, but like I feel like in comedy, I can't be like this sultry jazz singer. I would have to be like kind of ugly. Like I would have to sing kind of ugly, because it's not so much about the beauty of the words. I fucked that up.
No.
It's not so much about the beauty of the musical phrasing in the lyrics as it is about the actual words. So it would be more like a Broadway singer or something, where you had to just make your words clear.
Exactly.
So rather than being like, I don't know, like rather than being like, I love you, I have to be like, I love you. Like I have to be like very direct.
Exactly.
Like, you know?
You're exactly right.
I thought of that too.
Yeah, you should be thinking about that, because when you write your first comedy song, that is going to be very important. And it's a big part of how I allow songs to kind of go further, and songs that like I've written but I don't necessarily perform all the time. And what's difficult for me, and I would be interested to hear your thoughts on this, is like, once kind of a comedy song has been written, I very rarely go back and change it.
Really?
Yeah. It would be harder for me, I think, to revise big chunks of the song and rememorize it in a new way than I had already memorized it, and perform it again. I would feel less confident about that than like changing a structural aspect of a song. Like for a recent performance, I was like, somebody told me your musical interludes are too long, to which I said, absolutely, you're right, no problem. And I was able to drop out about what added up to about 30 seconds of time back, just from kind of moving musical things around. And that to me is a lot easier. It's guitar based. It doesn't obstruct with the memorized joke telling, which I have to do. So most of the time, if a song doesn't work, if anybody's seen me play a song a couple of times and they're like wondering, oh, where does that song go? It's a song that doesn't get any laughs. So it goes away. It'll go into the set later on. Don't worry about it so much.
You just like try a song out at open mics, and if it doesn't get laughs a couple times, you just like shit can it kind of.
Yeah, it's not that it gets shit canned, because I like that song. Like I still like the idea.
Like, fuck it, I like it.
Yeah, exactly. But I recognize that it's not funny. And that is... we could talk about this. I think what's interesting about getting criticism as a musician is that it is objective, right? Like theoretically, if you or I are performing just music, somebody could come up to us after and be like, "Hey, you were flat here," or like, "Hey, your guitar's out of tune," or like, "Go get your piano tuned," or XYZ. Somebody could come up and have a really, a real thing, and you kind of have to learn how to take it. And that made me, kind of growing up, my dad was a musician, have kind of tough skin to deal with criticism. I think getting criticism from comedians is really hard. And giving criticism is also very hard.
Because it's not as... like singing a wrong note is obvious.
Exactly.
And there is freedom of interpretation in music of musical styles. Like, so for example, me and my sister were talking about singers the other day. I'm a big fan of nasally singers. I love Amy Winehouse, and she's quite a nasally singer. And my sister's like, I don't really like that nasaliness. She likes more of like a wholesome type of voice that isn't nasally.
And Adele, not an Amy.
Yeah, exactly. And so there is freedom of interpretation in those ways musically. Sure. But you're right. A wrong note is a wrong note. An out-of-tune piano is an out-of-tune piano. There are some things that you can't debate. A wrong chord, whatever. Right. But with comedy, it's like you really don't know whose advice to take. Like sometimes I'll get comedians' advice like, hey, it was too wordy here or too this there. But so someone might love it and someone might hate it, and you don't really know what the like path is,
For sure. I think, it was interesting. I thought going into it, it would be much more like music mics, where like somebody at a music mic would come up to you and say, hey man, on the chorus here, you're playing a major 7 chord. You actually need to be playing an A flat major 7 chord. And you can be like, oh, you know what? You're right. I didn't think about that. But when you're doing comedy, most of the time you get is like, good job, or like, that's funny, or that works. Yeah. And like, that goes a long way, So, and then the ultimate feedback of comedy is laughter, right?
Did it get a laugh or not?
Yeah. Exactly. So like, it's just such a different world. And, it was very interesting to me to see, and I'm curious, like, if you have any stories about it, like coming from music and being like, you know what, like I'm cool with if somebody comes up and tells me something, I can deal with that. But like, with comedy, like it's just a totally different way of communicating.
Yeah, I feel like because I used to be very sensitive to being on stage, and like to the point where I would have panic attacks on stage.
Really?
When I was playing piano, when I was younger, yeah, I would like my hands would shake. I would cry after performances. Ooh. But I feel like I've gotten over that to the point where I'm like numbed, and it's so. If I bomb as a comedian, I feel sad, like really sad, but I'm also somehow able to take it now. Like, I don't know why, but it's like,
oh yeah,
it's like I feel this immense pain that I just bombed, but I'm somehow able to like just deal with it now. As in the past, like I really struggled with performance anxiety when I was much younger.
It's hard, I think bombing is interesting for me. I think that, I do like it. I kind of understand when it's going on, and I just have to not get as frustrated because I've bombed during actual sets, and that's frustrating to me. I think it just does. So I have to get better at that. That's one thing that I can definitely get significantly improve on.
This is what really annoys me, or like confuses the shit out of me, is I don't know if you've experienced this. In some settings, I tell the same exact joke the same exact way. It gets an insane laughter in this bar, but it got 0 laughter in this bar. And shit like that is like really confusing feedback. I'm like, why did I it could be the type of vibe of the people, like those type of people got it and those type of people didn't get it. It's like so fucking confusing how like different settings also bring out different reactions.
Well, I just had this whole experience because I've been playing with you and our buddies, doing comedy open mics all around New Jersey, sometimes going into, the New York City area, but mostly in New Jersey. And the stuff I was doing in front of other comics, specifically a song I have called Empathy, which is really about the feelings that you kind of have to have in order to be a comedian, which is to be pretty empathetic.
Yeah.
And to have empathy for the other people in the world, and to kind of look at different ways of working on it. And my song is really about like, I feel bad for the maid who's probably underpaid. I feel bad for the virgin who doesn't get laid, all those different kinds of things. And that had done very well for me on open mics. And I was very proud of it. And I felt like it had a punky aspect to it. It had kind of a different guitar rhythm than me or another guitar comic would make. But when I tried it out in front of an actual audience, it got nothing. And that was super frustrating because to me, like, first of all, I didn't know that was going to happen because I hadn't had enough experience in front of regular people to say like, oh, they're not going to get this inside joke, And then it was also looking back at it and being like, this song is very fast paced. So the ideas are flying by so fast that, the regular audience isn't listening the same way we are.
That's the thing too, is like, I've figured that out too, is like, I don't know what the fuck it is, but I always bomb at Wawa. I never do well at Wawa Social Club. And
we could talk about Wawa. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have nothing bad against it. It's just that whenever I tell jokes there, it's like such a tough crowd, and they're all comics. And I'm like, I don't know what it is there. If it's just like, because they're all comics, they just have like a higher demand for what they think is funny or something like that. But like, I usually bomb there, as opposed to some other open mics where I killed, and I'm just like, I don't fucking get it. Like,
I haven't seen you bomb at Wawa yet, so we'll see that one day. But how lucky we are to know the people who are at Wawa who have kept that kind of place going.
Yeah.
And, it's definitely a different audience and a different way of performing in front of our buddies, because it's a dedicated room.
Yeah.
I think that has a lot to do with it. I think that it's not in the back of a bar. It's not in a bar. There's no windows. You're not looking outside. There's no transit there. Like, you're kind of planted there.
Yeah.
And I think among the other comedians, we're looking for people to make us laugh and to be good and to be as cutting edge as they can.
Yeah.
And also, I think that the lens is wider to make different kinds of jokes, and that people have a lot more freedom there. And I don't know. I would say I would like to go back to a Hell Yeah. They have a great show there. I've played there, but I haven't been back in a minute. But it's fun, and I think what that feedback gives you is like, all right, like these guys are fucking tough. My advice: go early. Get there on the earlier side. Sign up on the earlier side.
That's another thing. And
more people will be there. They won't empty out to downstairs.
That's what we were kind of getting at though with this conversation. I got off track a little bit. As a stand-up comedian starting out, one of the tricky things about understanding what you're good, it's almost like you have to get shows to know what you almost have to treat beginner shows as an open mic as the real deal, because at these actual open mics, it's like you might not get a laughter sometimes for reasons you don't realize. Like, all the stand-up comedians got high and I mean, they would probably laugh more, but you know what I mean? Like, they might just be there to socialize and they're all high or drunk and not paying attention. Or you could perform in the beginning of the set, and then at the end of the beginning of the night and at the end of the open mic, like, everyone's just not paying attention. They're on their phones or they all left. And sometimes you might get a laugh from them because they do have this wider lens and a more open mind of not being offended because they're comedians. So you might say something to them that like they think is hilarious, and then you go to a regular crowd and they're like highly offended by it. So it's like, it is really hard to figure out what it's going to work in an open mic versus real people. It's almost like you kind of have to find a way to find open mics with real people. It's also kind of ironic that we have to differentiate that like comedians aren't real people and real people aren't like it's like
well, are they though? Are they real people? I don't know. Maybe I had to make the decision that for me, I thought as a highly social person who I had moved cities. My friends were mostly in Manhattan and Queens and Brooklyn. I was in Jersey City. I had to make my buddies, they did come. They were very nice, but they didn't come all the time. Yeah. And I had to make new friends. And I thought that kind of making buddies with comedians was going out and like making friends, regular friends. Like if I was on like a lacrosse team or a Frisbee team or whatever, it's not really the same thing. It's a little bit different. Somebody explained it to me as comedy alliances, and that's maybe a little bit of a better way to look at it. I don't like to say comedy acquaintances because I think that it's a pretty intimate relationship comics have with one another about
everything about
it. Yeah, it's pretty heavy. And I've talked to comics about like, how much of it should we be looking at as like, are we in group therapy or are we like doing comedy all together? But besides the point, like learning that lesson of like, these are pirates and we are all pirates and sharks, and you have to be kind of a shark too to protect yourself so that you're not as vulnerable as you can be, but also remembering to have that vulnerability because that's what helps people understand me. And so it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's definitely harder than I thought it was, and it's definitely much more management. You have to think about it. You have to invest that time to like go have a drink with the guy a couple of times before you have them meet Shayna. It was different stuff, but and also thinking about, I've cut down a certain herbal substance in my life significantly since last year. When I don't, we could talk about all that, whatever. But the main thing is I'm just now doing it on the weekends, right? Just not as much.
It's
a little bit
legal now, so there's no shame in
I understand, but it's still for keyword purposes. I don't want Andrew Sherman and well, I guess you could already listen to the weed song. It's
oh my God, I don't mean to cut you off, but at some point we have to tell them the story about the DJ thing. Are we allowed to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
You can finish what you were saying before, but then after that, I want to talk about the DJ thing.
Sure. So, I just smoke less. So I think, I thought everyone smoked as I did, and they do not. And somebody went down pretty hard. And I always think feel guilty about that, even though it's totally okay. And then one time I walked in on them telling that story like at a show, and they're like, AJ's here, and they gave me a round of applause and like, AJ, remember when I passed out on your floor because we got super duper high? And I was like, yeah. Anyway, the DJing story, right?
So
okay.
we have to. So you guys have to hear this story about him as a DJ. It's one of the. I feel bad that I think it's so funny because it sounds like a really traumatic experience. But when you told me, I was like, I'm so sorry, I'm laughing. This is so funny.
Oh, it's funny. It's definitely funny.
You guys have to hear this story.
Yeah. So 2010, I started to learn how to virtual DJ. I had my little computer and I was learning about, beat matching and playing different kinds of music, and I was having a great fun time with it. But I was also, supposed to be writing my term paper, which I had won a scholarship through the school to write. So fast forward, it is March of 2011. I'm contacted by a neighbor. Says, AJ, we would love you to DJ our Kegs and Eggs party. To fill you in, Kegs and Eggs is the celebration of St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, that makes sense.
In the University of Albany. And what it is it's the Saturday before St. Patrick's Day. Mm-hmm. People will gather very early in the morning, drink green beer, eat green eggs, vomit, party, do what have you. Anyway, I was very excited to do this because I was a transfer student. I'd only done... Kegs and Eggs one time. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm DJing. And I would always prefer, maybe you can relate to this. Like I would always rather work, play, or make food at a party than be at a party.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Just I'd rather have a reason to be there than to,
exactly the same.
So yeah. I was like, okay, cool. So I took all this rigged up stereo stuff we had from our house. I brought it over to this guy's basement. I set up my computer and start DJing at 6:00 in the morning. And I'm wearing full neon green, everything neon green, fitted Yankees cap, everything. And start DJing and I'm doing pretty good. And I'm pretty sure I remember looking up and I had between 60 and 80 people in this basement going crazy. And it was really, really fun. I really liked Girl Talk, and I really loved mashups. And kind of a friend had showed me a way where if you find pre-done mashups and you mash up the mashups, you can make new mashups, which was very fun for me to do, which requires intense concentration. It's being a good DJ is a very technical, hard thing to do. And for the people who are really doing it out there all the time, you can do something I really can't really do. But anyway, I was playing or whatever, and I look up, everyone's dancing. I look down, I look back up, nobody's there, and I'm like, oh shit. I see what's going on, and then my friends who lived in the house with me come over, and they're like, AJ, we got to go. The cops are here. And I'm like, dudes, we can't go. I have all my stuff right here. What are we going to do? And they're like, all right, man, I don't know what you want to do. We're getting the hell out of here. And I'm like, okay. And of course I had, been drinking and smoking and everything. And these 3 riot cops come down the stairs in full riot gear. And they're like, you're under arrest. And I was like, oh shit. And so they didn't let me take my computer, and they threw me up. They threw me up the stairs. It wasn't we did not both agree on going up the stairs together. One person was clearly in charge, and they were throwing my skinny ass up the stairs. And we got into the kitchen, and they're screaming at me, and they're like, AJ, get this person on the phone, get this person on the phone, get this person on the phone. The guy who had signed me up to DJ his party, him and his buddies had locked themselves in the upstairs apartment and were not opening or answering any phone calls. They were just hiding until the cops went away and left me out to fucking hang. And ultimately, we did try to show, in the academic tribunal, that I had been calling these guys, and I was really furiously trying to get them on the phone. They were like, all right, well, if they're not going to come down and take the blame, you're coming in. And I'm like, oh, shit. And I'm, really freaking out. So then they take me, and we go outside, and it's those college row houses, and it's all those people who are just in this party are now outside on the street watching pale ass white AJ in full green get brought out of this fucking house. And I'm I'm trying to I'm trying to just not do anything else. You know what I mean? Not get myself more in trouble.
Yeah.
Because I'm not that way anyway.
Yeah.
But like I was just like, I'm not gonna yell at this guy. They weren't regular. It wasn't like now where it was like a regular looking cop. He was a cop in full on riot shit. So like there was I wasn't gonna be like, well, you don't get to do it to me. You know, it wasn't gonna happen. So he threw me in the back of the car, and I'm sitting there, and of course my housemates are yelling. They're like, you can't detain him like this. You know, what are you doing or whatever. Didn't make sense. So I'm sitting there in the back there, you know, hanging out for like 30 minutes. And then he comes back, he gives me a ticket. On the ticket, it says, okay, you know, noise violation. And I'm like, oh shit, this is awesome. I'm cool. I went back home. I partied some more. I told my my then girlfriend. I went on with the rest of my day. I'm thinking, no big deal. Okay, what I didn't know was outside was fucking pandemonium. It was a pandemonium. And what was going on was these kids, you know, who were on this big party were not just partying, they were rioting, and they were throwing microwaves out of third-story windows. They were toppling cars. There's good stuff on YouTube. This is like the early days of camera phones. Yeah. So there's some good stuff on YouTube you could go and see for Kegs and Eggs 2011 of what it looked like. We made Glenn Beck, right? Like that was a big note of pride at the time. But what ended up happening was a lot shittier because the next day comes, that was a Saturday. The next day comes around. My academic advisor, who's in charge of me writing this paper, sends me an email. And he's like, Andrew, I need you to see you in my office first thing Monday morning. My real name is Andrew. We could talk about that, but in a minute. But anyway, he's like, come on in. I'm like, okay. I'm like, what does he want to talk about? Maybe he wants to talk about the paper, wants to check up on me. We'll see. I go in, I sit down. He slams the newspaper called the Times-Union on his desk. And he's like, Andrew Sherman got arrested this weekend. Was that you? And I said, yes. And he reamed me out harder than anybody's ever yelled at me in my entire life, right? I had gotten drunk in a park and lost like my parents' $800 Trek bike when I was in high school. Like that was the neighbors came over and were like, hey, it's pretty loud to my dad. Yeah. This guy went further beyond that. He's like, you're a representative of the school. What the fuck are you doing DJing? This is bullshit. You should be fucking writing and reading. You won money. You represent the school. You're a failure. You're a nothing. Yada, 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 yada. And he's like, you're a disgrace. And he's like, I'm not going to befriend you. Yeah. Because I had been trying to be friends with this guy the whole time. Oh my God. Like I remember writing him like when I was traveling abroad, and I had like a really sweet advisor when I started at the first school I was at, and writing to this guy and being like, his name was Barry Trachtenberg. I wrote to him and I'm like, hey B, you know, like here in Israel having a great time, you know, wanted to know if we could have a teleconference or talk sometime about what's to come when I get back to school. And he was like, you will not refer to me as B. You will only refer to me as Professor Trachtenberg or Mr. Trachtenberg. We are not friends. And like this whole like really, you know, litigious asshole email. He was an asshole. Anyway. So long story short, I went into court and I, once I had known that I was really in trouble because there were 6 other students who were arrested and the school was taking that, you know, quote unquote, zero tolerance approach where if you got arrested, you were going to get in serious trouble. They brought everybody in for different stuff, but you got to understand the levels of involvement were light years apart, right? Flipping a car, DJing a loud party in a basement, charging a riot police officer, DJing a party in a basement. And what was so super duper frustrating and hard about it was the academic tribunal. The court wasn't really that bad. They were able to get it dismissed. I did community service hours. No big deal. Everything was fine. But the school was a lot more intense. And they brought the officer in. Mm-hmm. He lied. Mm-hmm. They told us we couldn't have a lawyer. That turned up not being true. Mm-hmm. It was really hard.
I think the thing about the story I find so funny is that like you literally had no clue about, like you just walked into this situation and had no clue. You were just there to DJ.
No idea.
And then everybody was just like, oh, we gotta go, and they just left you for bait. Like,
oh, totally. Well, the cops said
so fucked up.
The cops said that there was a gun. So like I get that they were upset, you know. It wasn't like people had just, you know, shown up, but what was so crazy to me, I think, was how far it escalated. Yeah. Right. So like once I knew I was in trouble with the school, I drove home. I told my parents. They weren't as mad as I thought they were going to be. I thought that they would have been really upset, but they kind of knew like I was a musician. I was loud anyway. Like I would be in some kind of trouble at some point. And of the trouble I could have gotten into, like this wasn't really, they didn't consider this really that bad. And I'm very grateful to them to have their support and their help and you know, their constant approval, which is what I'm really seeking anyway. But you know, after that, it really stopped making me want to perform or do music at Dirt because all I really wanted to, at that point, just experience with was not playing, not performing, and just felt like I had thrown away every opportunity I had to do it right, you know, and being so frustrated and having all that angst, you know, is good for songwriting, but it's not good for when you can't do it or you don't think you can do it. So you're just kind of in that space where like, I want to be writing songs. I should be writing songs. I can't write any songs. I don't know what to sing about. And not having that voice for such a long time. Having said all that though, I will think the amount of time I spent living life and like having the crazy experiences that I've did beyond that time and before starting comedy was huge. Yeah. And that like, I don't know if I would have been funny or been able to have been funny at 23 or 24, let alone 19.
I've heard people say that when I first started comedy, I was worried that I was too old to start comedy. And I heard a lot of, not even people that I know in real life, but I've listened to a lot of podcasts of professional comedians talking about how you can start later in life as a comedian because at that point you've had life experiences to laugh about.
Right.
And that's not to say that people in their 20s don't have difficult things happen to them because
totally.
They do. But like, and you can be really funny at that age, but even professional comedians who make it on stage, usually I feel like people hit big in their 30s. Like I don't know, I'm unless I'm missing somebody, but I don't know that many comedians that I see on stage that are like 22. I feel like they're all like they just made it when they were like 32 or maybe 29, but like I feel like there has to be some type of life experience or something to even joke about, you know?
Yeah, I'm for me that's how it works. You know, I just think, you know, I had all that self-loathing for so long, and then I produced parties and I did like event planning, and I loved that, and that was very, very fun. I did a couple of comedy events. That's how I have my picture with Dave Attell on my Instagram.
I did
Yeah, I did a Hanukkah comedy event with a comedian called Michelle Slonim. He used to make money on the side by doing like dating events with comedy things in them as a comedian, and we would produce as this, you know, this event. Social media company that I was a part of, we would host them and do ticketing and check people in. And then one time we were doing like a major Hanukkah party down in the village, and she's like, I have a great, you know, surprise guest coming, but I can't tell you who it is. I'm like, that's cool. And I go outside, and after Tony Woods had just performed. Tony Woods, great, amazing comedian. He has a great bit you could look up about smoking weed and watching the Discovery Channel. Highly recommend. And I was like, oh my God. And I'm drunk and high, obviously. I'm like, Tony Woods, that was amazing. I remember watching your Comedy Central presents. Like, I'm such a huge fan. And he's like, oh, you like me? You're going to love this guy. And like, there turns around the tiny, small troll of Dave Attell. And I was like, achievement unlocked. And he was super cool. He took a picture with me. I was like, I remember watching Insomniac and all of your stuff and like all the partying and just fanning out over him. And that was like epic stuff.
That's one of the cool things too about being a comedian is that I feel like as a musician there is, I mean, I could be generalizing, but I do feel like, at least from the female perspective, there is this like pressure of like, if you didn't make it as a musician when you were young and pretty, you screwed up, like kind of thing. And I feel like for comedy, that's not the case. Like, and I thought of that because you just described Dave Attell as a little troll, and I'm like, oh my God, you know, you can be a very attractive female comedian, and that could do you well. Like, I feel like Eliza Schlesinger is really attractive, but she's also really funny, and like Whitney Cummings is also very attractive, but she's also funny. So like, but there's also some female comedians that are not as, I'm not going to name them because that's rude, but I feel like there's some female comedians that like, I don't look at them as a pinnacle of beauty. Like they're just really funny, or even dudes. Like I don't know of that many like dashingly handsome male comics. Like,
have you been to LA? Have you hung out in LA at all yet?
No.
You should go hang out there.
They have dashing,
so like
handsome
I recommend everybody, if you're from the East Coast, go out and hang out in LA. Don't go out to try and make it in LA. Go and hang out and play, because it can be very fun. I heard a comedian talking about this after the fact, but the comedians in LA are beautiful, right? Okay, in his prime, Chris D'Elia, who's that guy? Matthew Broussard. He's very handsome.
Oh, he is. I know you're talking about. He's very handsome.
You know, back in the day, Joe Rogan, all of his other ripped dudes that he hangs out with in his cohort. Like, if you go to LA, like, you're going to see people who are ready to be on camera, ready to be in television and movies. Yeah. They have met the quota of beauty for that realm.
Although I do find Mark Norman very hot. I wouldn't say he's like the pinnacle of beauty in LA standards, but I think he's hot. I think Mark Norman is very
he's got a lot going on for him, right? He's very handsome. He's got the hair. Like, I mean, what more can you say? Mark Norman, I find you attractive as well.
I think Sam Morrill's really hot too.
Well, now he's like, that's like real sex right there. That's like real deal shit. He's the guy. He's like the only dude. Like, I'll watch his like unedited YouTube clips. Like, I'll go and find him. Yeah. Because he's like he's just a master. But besides the point, New York comics, like, Attell is the king here, right? And he is Is he ready for primetime, beauty contest? No, but he's kind of the king of New York comedy, I think we would say. And if you look at it, speaking on the female point of view, which I'm not, but you look at the nice ladies that are out in, Annie Letterman comes to mind in LA, and you think about female comedians here in the tri-state area, I think of Jessica Kirson. Yeah. And she's the queen. She's a genius. And I think New Yorkers, tri-state area people, East Coasters we understand that funny needs to come from kind of a dark place.
We can't afford Botox on the East Coast.
But I think we recognize that comedy comes from darkness. It comes from different parts of places. I think in LA, the job is they're smoothing that over for you, right? They're trying to make this all consumable and shareable and likable and friendly, gotcha. And that's commercial. Yeah. But that's okay, because you can do whatever you want and be whoever you want in comedy, and you can do it. I think you should try musical comedy. I think you should definitely try some songs.
I actually did write one song, but
what was it about? Let's talk about the songwriting process.
See, now you're doing the thing. You're doing the thing where people are like, tell me. I mean, this is a podcast, but like,
what's the premise?
The premise is so the premise is women are all looking for commitment, but like there's no such thing as commitment because we're all gonna die. Like, it doesn't sound funny when I describe it.
Yes.
But like I put like little punchlines in it.
No, that's great.
It's just like a premise about like we're all looking for commitment, but like what's commitment? Like, I'm gonna die, and like it's like little jokes about people dying.
Very good.
It sounds really fucked up.
No, that's great. I like that.
Speaking of comedy and music, I want to give you a chance. We're going a little longer than I usually go, so we're going to wrap things up. But at the end of the podcast, I would like to give you a chance to perform a little something, if that's something you're into.
I would love to do that. That would be very fun.
We're going to set up really quick. We'll be right back for him to perform a little number for you. Yeah.
Hello. So we're here at the musical interlude part of the show. Thank you so much for having me. This is very fun. So a few things. Go check out my YouTube page. That's the simplest. That's where I post full music songs. AJS Musical Comedy. You'll find tons of my stuff there. You can check out my podcast, www.longlostheroes.net. We're on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, whatever. And then check me out on social media, AJ Don't, on everything. Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Okay. I wanted to play a musically interesting song, so we'll try this one. It's unfortunate. Some would even say cruel. A mild inconvenience. Perhaps a joke on a fool. I am a bald man. I went bald at 23. And I just don't know why this had to happen to me. Maybe when I laid in bed at night and I cursed my frizzy Jufro. Or the time I got my hair chemically straightened in 9th grade, and that's a true story. I shave my own hair now, because if I didn't, I'd look like Krusty the Clown. Maybe when I wore a baseball cap for 3 consecutive seasons, I had all different colors for problematic personal reasons, and I've attended several life coaching presentations to learn to accept the fact that if I want to wear a hat, it's not necessarily misrepresentation. Just real quick, one last thing. We've been trying to reach you about your car's extended warranty. Please call me back. I think that was proper fun. Thank you, guys.
That was fucking hilarious. I loved that. This is my friend AJ Sherman, stand-up comic / musician in one package, and also content creator. If you liked what you hear, tell them again where they can find you in the...
Sure, AJ Don't on all my social media, so Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. You can find me on Facebook, but I'm pretty boring there. You can also check out my YouTube, which has all different kinds of stuff. But yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, this was very fun.
It was a lot of fun. It was a pleasure. And don't forget, before you leave, if you liked what you heard, if you enjoyed yourself, this is the Pranzata podcast. Don't forget to hit subscribe, like, and comment on anything that you liked or didn't like in the podcast. And we will be back next week with another guest. I have a bass player coming next week. So I'm excited about that one as well. Pranzata podcast. Have a good day. Bye.